I have to change. Oh, should be okay.
I see. I see. Okay, that's good. Oh shit. Can you do the Volkswagen glissando audio? Oh, you can. I think I'll listen to you play. Yeah. Yes. It's a lot. Yeah, well, the other one was like twice in a row in 2 days. Then two in one cycle. Yeah. Maybe you should prepare that. Oh no, it's not. Or you can do it. No. You just transfer it to hold on. Airplane mode? Okay, then I can also send it. My entire piece is like 7. Which ones? No. Yeah, the drums, right? Oh, that's very like concert pianist thing to do. Right. I think it's already super down scale.
What do you want? James Bond. On my head.
No, I think about.
Doesn't look like it's enough. Because it needs some. You need Wi-Fi. 2021. I know it goes well on the website.
Or no.
Oh, we can check it out.
It's not supposed to sound really good. It's just supposed to sound like a.
Second one is more. Oh, you could do it the way it's like. So if you're only doing 2 movements, you're not going to do the and we all after the game. Yeah, same. Yeah, we'll see what you're doing. That's okay. So you're so That's okay. Work for the. Oh yeah, it is. Loud enough. Is it okay if I position it on this side? Can you hear me? And it goes okay on the website? On YouTube, can you hear me there? Yes. All right, perfect. And do I have to turn it off in between?
No, I do that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, we all set. All right, hello guys. My name is Igor Resnianski, and we're going to execute 3 people today. One by one. Eric, yeah? Oh, Spencer. Let me double check. Yeah, Spencer will be first. All right, Spencer is going to play first in the second movement of that sonata. So he's afraid to play the other 2. So he chickened out. So all right, Spencer. Thank you, Eric. Eric, Spencer. Why I'm calling you Eric? Spencer, where do you study?
I study at the Juilliard
You study at Juilliard. Who are you studying with?
Professor Martin.
Marcus?
Julian Martin.
Ah, perfect. All right. How long have you been working on this piece?
I learned it in the fall semester, and then I didn't play that one.
So you kind of brought it for the festival. Very good. And so you played the complete sonata.
Yeah.
And what do you think about it?
I think it's
Can you guys hear? All right. So you can speak loud. I guess that will pick up on the microphone for the 5 people on YouTube.
I think it's underrated.
Uh huh.
It's very beautiful.
It's underrated, beautifully underrated.
Or not necessarily, but just I think the natural beauty of the piece is the quality.
Yeah. So it's not as often performed for some reason. Yeah. And all right. What else?
About the piece.
Yeah. Not the history, not but your impression of the first movement versus the second. That's what you played today. Maybe it will be good for the audience. I'm gonna make a lot of noise, sorry guys.
I think.
So you get the voice.
Yes. Hello.
Hello YouTube. Hello
Sorry.
YouTube.
So.
Your impression of the first movement and your impression of the second movement as a performer.
Right. So I think.
You wanna keep it close.
Yes, okay. So I think the first movement is a little bit, I would say, almost early impressionism. It's not as, what's the right word? Maybe not as hard or as strong as some of his other works. It's more the music flowing out of itself, I would say. Okay. Whereas the second movement is a huge contrast because I think the second movement is really interesting because the first section is this kind of dark.
You're learning how to work with the microphone.
I don't speak on the mic very
Yeah,
often.
I know, it's kind of weird. So the second movement is drastically contrasting to the first by what?
It's very dark and it's almost, there's so much depth to it. It's very dense. And then the middle section of the second movement is this really humorous and this kind of funny interlude, which also somehow foreshadows the return of the theme, which is again this just one of the darkest works in Beethoven, I feel like.
Oh wow! So you think that sorry, and for now we have just basic interview. You think that the second movement, that's the D minor section, is one of the darkest thing that Beethoven wrote, or within the list of his darker pieces, more intense, more in depth.
Maybe more accurately within his earlier period, maybe not his later period, but at least up to this time, maybe.
You just see it as a darker, more serious, more intense, dramatic, and then the middle section is a drastic contrast, playful, humorous, a little bit naive, kind of. And the first movement is just a beautiful flowing, and you're referring to this as potentially echoing impressionist for you, because it basically triggers the reaction with the sound as a color, which is not, it's not an impressionistic piece, it's orchestrally written by Beethoven, but it triggers the coloristic response from us, from the pianist. Well, that's not interesting thinking for the first movement, which I would agree. The second movement was always a struggle for me. I played this sonata years ago, and first of all, I'm happy that you didn't take slow tempo. I don't know if it was planned, was intentional, but you took it at andante tempo, which is very good, because sometimes it's played a little slower, and that's when it feels a little heavy, a little darker, a little more intense than the minor section. Do we know other Beethoven slow movements that are dark, tragic, dramatic, intense, or slower movement, because this is not really slow, but it's a slowest of four, that has a completely dramatically different, humorous middle section. It doesn't come to mind because I struggled with that second movement concept myself, trying to define if the D minor section is pretend to be serious with that humorous middle section that actually reveals that it's actually, more or less of pretending versus really being dark. He'd done this in his sonatas where the side movements around the dramatic slow movement would be contrasting the character. He'd done that. But I cannot recall within a dramatic movement to have something completely opposite of it. So my struggle was to try to define the expression of the D minor section. Is it really serious and dark? Because Beethoven chooses for extremely dark and intense a different tempo. He doesn't do andante. He goes with largo, he goes with adagio. So, but having it andante rather moving, and then with the staccato accompaniment, is that really he's trying to talk. So this is just something for you guys, if you ever play this sonata. I believe this is not an easy solution. D minor, dark, and then we have major section, all just humorous. And when you put this together in the pictures, Beethoven wanted to have this as a continuous storytelling. Is he really juxtaposing opposites here, or he's semi-pretending to be, darkish, dramatic-ish, but pretending, and then he reveals what is really. The only time when it gets a little bit really serious, it's at the very end. That seems to be genuinely dark for a moment, for me. So, with that, I'm going to break something today. So, what we're going to do, we're going to just try together, and again, just take it for what it is, because that's why I ask your opinion about this sonata. I don't like to impose what I think, unless there is something definitely wrong. So then you just say, well, your accompaniment is too loud. But in terms of interpretation, I don't feel entitled to be better than you. So you are a young musician, you have your own approach, and you described it pretty well. So this is you. So I can only offer you a little bit of a either different perspective, point on some details. There are some details that you really have to follow, and then it's up to you as a musician to say, well, that's worth something, and so, oh, well, good idea, but not for me. I don't see it this way. So let's start with the second movement, since we're talking about it, because again, for me, it wasn't that easy solution right away. So I would get it as a dark and intense if my left hand was different. And probably adagio, not andante. I would buy that as that's probably why they clipped it on the other side, because my head going to be on that side. Sorry, YouTube, I'm making too much noise there. So that left hand was always bothering me. If he's genuinely tragic here, why the hell he's... Well, that doesn't seem to be very tragic. So that is actually his... I mean, I don't know. He's been dead for a while. We won't be able to ask him, and there would be different opinions about this. If you play slower, then that can swing us more dramatic. But then staccato, why staccato? Staccato brings completely different energy into character. If it was or even legato. I would buy that as a serious. But then I would look at the whole sonata and say, well, why is he tragic here when it's all pastoral and playful? But he's done this in other sonatas when he would be genuinely tragic, when the other movements are completely opposite. So I would say, well, okay, he's done that. But so that is the puzzle for me as of today. I don't hear it as completely humorous, but I don't hear it as tragic. I hear it almost like pretending more or less to be dark, but the reveal happens here. That's definitely humorous, yeah? So, and having that with... The only time I think he is for a moment thinking about this as a tragic, potentially like shadowing that. That's where he gets rid of that left hand. And then partato instead of staccato. That leaves me questioning. Still, I think, why? If he decided to do a kind of darker ending, and he pretended before, and then after that there is nothing like that, just one place. So, here it is. I don't have the answer for that. But that left hand somehow bothers me that it is not super dark, not super serious, not super dramatic. It's more or less, pretending. But not in a sarcastic way. So he's, trying to make you believe. So now, so that's just an idea, take it or leave it. Now, the way you play doesn't sound tragic. If this is what you're going for, and this is your solution, you say, well, this is what I want to portray, then I would drop the tempo a little bit, even though it's not going to be andante, it will be leaning toward adagio, slow andante, and I would not sharpen my staccato as much, because staccato energizes things differently. It just brings the energy that darkness and drama doesn't have. It can bring sarcasm, but it doesn't bring drama. So. And you're very good with pedal, actually. You're careful, which is good. I like that. So if this is your interpretation, I would do something like that. Because otherwise it doesn't sound what you're trying to present. And I don't mind this to sound more dramatic. Why not? I don't hear it this way, it's my problem. So let's work with your idea, not with my idea. So can we make it more dark and dramatic as you wanted to? So for that, go to the lower end of your tempo, a slower andante, almost like looking toward adagio a little bit. Staccato will be more of the non-legato because it just cuts not on half anyway, so you don't have to force it. And then do not keep it really in the background, and then listen the length of the notes and try to feel that transition from one chord to another. So that timing, I wouldn't call it expansion too much, but stretch a little bit, will create that dramatic tension, harmonic tension as you will. And then it will portray what you're trying to. Then I will say, well, this is your idea, and I'm clear about it. That's why I ask you what you think about this. And so your idea not matching your execution yet. Let's try to do that. So instead of that would never be dramatic to me, but this way you might convince me, try. Every note left hand. Don't force staccato, just play it. Right, because you're technically playing detached. Crescendo to the edge, then blow. That's actually marked crescendo. That's what you cannot do. You have to follow Beethoven's score. You don't want to reinterpret crescendos into diminuendo. No, a little bit more intense. If you want to create drama, you don't want to make your crescendo just as an implied something. Just, grow. Slower. Even here, you can escalate the sound a little bit more. Because then I hear a little bit of even aggression behind this, and that turns things into more serious. And then it's because then you're creating more of the processional, dark march procession. I will buy that image, even though I don't relate to it, but I will buy it. I will say, good for you. You convinced me in your performance that can be played that way. Try again. Yeah, from the beginning, second repeat. And if you want to bring darkness and you're in the lower register, lower notes usually gives us a little bit more depth. So at the repeat, you could voice a little bit of the lower line. Like same here. Because that's fairly threatening, yeah? And so I would capitalize on that darker feel, because this is what you wanted to express. You cannot express darkness with a light touch. And you cannot express serious and intensity with upbeat articulation. It just simply doesn't work. No. Yeah, low, so it's, and plus crescendo. You could be a little bit more intense there in your crescendo. Right. Then I get scared a little bit listening this. And then here. So if you want to create the sense of kind of loneliness and emptiness, and so you have to, again, arrange your sound a little bit differently. Now here he splits into two voices, actually four. But in the right hand, it's not a united chord or interval anymore. Then again, it's by writing a separate stem for that line, he tells you, well, I wanted this to sound as a separate voice. And it's one of the repeats, you could actually bring this out. And that will also create a little bit more serious, darker expression that you're going for. Let's say it's second time. So that pickup is still part of the third interval, but here on the downbeat you get two voices. Crescendo then, and then it's sforzando. Then rest. That's not an optional rest. You don't want to pedal over it. So the top voice is held, the bassoon is playing its second note, but there is a rest in other voices. So you cannot pedal over it. Now, that's what you cannot do. That's a given. Then you have a quarter with the eighth under. You play it. You approximated it. You have to be careful. Sforzando. You were playing. You had something on those sforzandos, but they were not bright enough. And some sforzandos in the first one were too bright. It would be nice. Yeah? Eight. You have to sell your idea, otherwise it's a wrong package. Can you try again? And you can look at the music if you want to. No. It has to be more kind of spheric sound, only in the right hand. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And then for the second repeat, notice, it's from this measure he splits this into two voices. So you have an opportunity, to show D from here, not in the first measure. First measure is just stays in one group of instruments and the other one added. Right. Crescendo, 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 and then piano. No, then it's piano. That's what you cannot do. You can look at the music, I would suggest it. Because with Beethoven, he was fairly specific. When he writes crescendos with no dynamic destination, and he writes crescendos that arrive somewhere where he wants to. So here you have a lot of crescendos that lead in somewhere, but then he abruptly returns back to the general dynamic where he was. So you cannot just imply it, and I mean, you can, but that means you're dismissing Beethoven. So, and he would be screaming at you, running around with a cooking pot and try to beat you in the head, because he would get very upset if you ignored his score. So he would be screaming at you in German. Right. Blend the pedal away from this bass, because this bass is not sounding over the. So you don't want to have a dry cut. Where is it? You don't want to have a dry cut, but you don't want to do this. It's not a quarter, so it's. Yeah, because you're adding another voice that Ludwig didn't write. Now crescendo. Crescendo. Right. Sforzando. No, sforzando. No. So the problem with sforzando is such that, and everyone can approach it differently, guys, and I don't know how you treat sforzando versus SF versus FP. Usually, when you notice that sforzando is written in all sorts of dynamic levels. It can be in forte, it can be in piano, and anywhere in between. So if you play with more energy in all voices, you're going to get a lot of sound. And for me, that's you cross into the more of the forte piano accent, which is stronger. Sforzando is something unexpectedly brighter within dynamic level you are in. How to make it work in a texture that has so many notes aligned. And so it's usually one note. You pick that, sometimes it's often melodic, but sometimes in Beethoven you have to watch. And Henley positions those sforzandos rather accurately. Sometimes it's positioned over the bass, while in the inner voice it's positioned over the top voice or under the low voice. So it's a single note that is unexpectedly brighter than everything around it within dynamic level you're in. Then it will be a pinch. Otherwise it's tenuta, yeah. Then it's sforzando. You're not gonna, imagine you play all the notes like that. Then it will be loud, soft, so that will be too much. So usually it's one note. Try again. No, you pedaled over the rest. You know, your A16 is hanging too much. Right. And again, only the sforzando one note. And then it's a quarter with the eighth under. Try that. And then keep going. Not too staccato. Good. No, you crescendo into sforzando, so you're giving it away. You don't want to do that. Less. Now crescendo. No. No, you have to arrive. C should be forte, yeah? Forte is different, depends on the character, depends on the texture and everything. You try to create dramatic image, so your forte has to be a little bit more intense. So if you... keep it up to there and then... play from here. Don't push your tempo. Like there will be no sforzando. It's So you don't want to give away that it will be a little bit of that kind of suffering, pinch, or I don't know, pain. Right. D. Right. Only in the right hand. It was almost first Sunday. Yeah. It should be a little bit more. No, crescendo. Arrive. And then show the low voice as well, yeah. Right. Now, you have to be careful how you treat tempo. Tempo is an expressive entity in music, just like the sound. And if you start to play something fairly loose, rubato-ish like, because you feel so, this is orchestral writing. So it ain't gonna work like that in the orchestra. And so, I want that. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Right. You can delay from forte to piano just to clear the air a little bit, but I wouldn't make it too loose. Not here. This is not that kind of material, not that kind of writing. Beethoven has those beautiful melodic moments when it's heartfelt. He writes espressivo and everything. So, yeah, but not here. And even there, you have to be careful not to OD on tempo variations. Now, the next part you played, how it sounded. It was humorous, it was energetic, everything was good except a few things what you cannot do. You played this, and then you played. What's up with that? That's a staccato, and that's a legato. It should be. You cannot create pedal slur just because you played enough pieces that had that. Right. They all have to be right. That's what you cannot do. Right. Very good. No, it's not. Very good. See, I also like when you vary the same material that is reappearing back to back. Sometimes you do it, but sometimes you don't. Like, for example, think about this. They're exactly the same. There is not a huge difference in even registers switch. But I guess you still have to vary it a little bit more than what you think you do. It's a different emoji on the last one. More, less disappointed. Right. Good. Very good. So, and that goes good, well with the character. Same thing here, careful not to. So it's. And I know you're trying not to accent the end of it, right? I don't think you have to rush the 30-second note. You're almost trying to double dot it. you just had a slur between G and F sharp. You cannot do that. See, even here, see. Different. Right, if you want to insert the cuckoo into it, then it's full eighth note, not staccato. And actually left hand is not staccato. Right, right. So that would be probably the course I would take with this movement if you want to express what you're trying to express. And then I will believe you. Now, we have a little time. The first movement, the tempo is the first thing we have to figure out. And it's a struggle. It's when somebody tells you, well, it should go with that tempo. Well, boo, you go on YouTube and you listen different pianists and they play in 5 pianists play in 5 different tempos. So there is no such thing as right and wrong. It depends on what you're trying to express. So, but also if you look at the score, your tempo was, try to start the beginning again. So we all remember that tempo while I'm drinking. Try. Good. So those are quarters. Convert them into eighth notes. Just play the major scale. This will be quarters. Good, and then convert them into 16th. Right. Right. So that becomes very fast. Are you playing Allegro or are you playing something faster than Allegro? So the thing is, it's very deceiving. It doesn't work exactly that you just have to check your 16th notes and then determine your tempo in the Allegro. It doesn't quite work this, but there is a little bit of a truth in that. If you check because there are a few 16th notes there, yeah? Right. Right. So if you try to, when composers write a tempo and then they choose the subdivisions within the tempo, so they kind of signaling you how fast they want you to go in that more moving tempo. Because, like example, Mozart A minor sonata, last movement marked presto. You're not going to play like that. It's not written in 16th notes, and pianists don't play like that fast. So I would be careful to choose my tempo too edgy. Even though you don't have a lot of 16th notes, we will never find out how edgy it can go. But it also changes the atmosphere. You try to present something beautiful, colorful, reflective. I'm slightly rewording what you told me. But your tempo is fairly energized. So therefore, you're creating more of the energy, busyness, intensity on a positive end. Oh no, you're not trying to do this, but that's what comes out.
Or I think it still needs that kind of Beethovenian drive to it.
It has to, yeah, but when we're now talking between 150 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour. So that's what we have to figure out. Yes, drive should be there, you're absolutely right. But if you have this system, it's one of those examples. If it's enough of those in classical music. Except here, you don't have too many 16th notes to later tell you what are you doing. Here's a speeding ticket to you. Mozart K332. Smart allegro. But it starts slow. So you naturally think, that's boring. You naturally want to play faster until you get to the 16th notes and you realize, oh, shoot. So here you don't have oh, shoot moment because you don't have too many 16ths. So. And even that potentially could be faster. Now, drive is there when you get to my finger's cold. Then you grow. So the dynamic will bring this intensity. Because the material itself is not really asking you to get too dramatic until you get to the development section. Even there, just because you have 8 notes doesn't mean you have to run around. We're going to stop here. So I would look for tempo. But again, if you like what you do, it's not going to be detectable that it's too fast because you don't have too many fast notes. You have just 8. So, but this is so it's really it's not yet agitated. It's just to sustain the harmony. Then you have sforzando, not forte. Yes, there is crescendo, but your forte is not until only sforzando. Probably want to bring it down before you build it up. So watch for your crescendos and watch for sforzandos versus forte. And watch for partissimo versus single forte because sometimes you're mixing those up. Well, we do have to stop. It's a beautiful sonata. I'm glad you learned it because that was my pick years ago, besides other sonatas that I played, but I prepared that for the competition. It went very well. Not too many people played it. So nowadays, I think you see it performed a little bit more often. But it's perceived as well that it's like not that difficult, kind of like whatever.
I think it's tricky.
It is very tricky. It's so demanding in content to try to interpret it, and then in the control and precision, what is written in the score, and so it's not that simple. So, right. I'm gonna break something today. Nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you. All right, we're going to go with Prokofiev, yeah? It's almost like he starts. All right. Okay, Eric.
Yes.
So I was trying to call everybody Eric. Would you like to score? I have it in my, I have it downloaded it. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I have
There
it.
are some versions online that are not quite good.
Yes. Which copy are you using? You have it here, yeah?
I have a version, I don't know what it's called, but it's better. It's a bit more
My original score is actually printed in Germany years ago, but edited in
Yes, this is a bit funny. Is this a bit better?
this is good.
Okay.
Let me have this, and I will just rest this thing down here. Because the other one I cannot see even if it's sharp or flat. Do you want to play complete sonata, and then we talk a little bit about it?
I can do anything you'd like.
Yeah, just play. It's not very long. It's like 15, 16 minutes. So just, yeah, play the whole thing.
Okay.
Good job, you're a brave man. Are your hands cold? Your hands cold, or are you keeping them warm?
Warm up halfway through.
Yeah, because I'm frozen. It's hard to play something like this last moment if your hands are cold. Guys, how many of you know this sonata? How many of you hear it for the first time? You can raise your hand, I never heard this before. So, more or less, yeah? So what do you think about this piece? The ones, few of you that didn't hear that before, what do you think?
Nice characters.
Hmm?
Very nice characters. Different.
Nice characters, that's right. So what kind of characters are there?
There's the crazy character.
Crazy characters.
Then there's the mysterious character, the second, which is evil and sometimes magical.
Yeah, it's a very interesting sonata. It's still not commonly played. People start playing it a little bit more often, but so keep it in your repertoire. If you go for the competition, less likely somebody else will be playing it. So, but now, Eric, you're going to tell us your story about this sonata quickly, because I usually like to hear what you think about it before I will tell you what I might just suggest you. And the interview will start now. So, your description, first, second, third movement, the way you see it as a performer.
This sonata, of course, is relatively underplayed as compared to other Prokofiev sonatas. It's not as technically brilliant throughout the entire piece as compared to, let's say, the ones like number 6 or number 2 or number 8. It's not as, it doesn't stay in one character for very, very long. It doesn't necessarily take a very, very light theme and transform it into something very, very grotesque. It stays within the character, as for instance, like number 5. Starts with a very, very nice theme, but it tends to actually morph and change. This sonata to me is Prokofiev's probably most personal composition. It's incredibly characteristic, but not many times do you see Prokofiev compact all 5 of his traits so densely in a piece of music. The first movement to me is almost perfectly written by Prokofiev himself in his little blurb that he writes, which I believe he dedicates to Maximilian Schmidhoff.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think very much of the upbringing of Shostakovich in a way in the Soviet Union, about how he was not able to properly, his career was very, very much shelled away from politics and from commissions of people who he did not want to necessarily compose for or compose about. And I hear that very, very much in the very, very beginning passage, and he actually lets go quite a little bit of it in the middle. The second movement, in my opinion, is almost like slowly losing your consciousness from blood loss. Almost, it begins extremely dreadfully, an extremely somber texture, and the middle section for me is all of the happy moments in this man's life flashing briefly before him until he returns to reality. And then the third movement is completely out of character, in my opinion, from the first 2, and it is almost a complete mockery, essentially, of all perceived third movements, where he has an incredibly awkward, incredibly ornately written left hand with a very, very sarcastic and childish-like motif in the right hand. And if I were to say one thing about the sonata, it's that...
It's a lecture recital.
Yeah. If I were to say one thing about the sonata, it would be that, in my opinion, this is what went on in this man's mind at the time of what is probably one of the hardest times he spent through.
Very good. So, and I do like in masterclass setting to, again, as I already said before, that I like you as a young performer, you have your opinion and you very well thought through this piece. So I don't like to impose ideas before knowing what you think. So because otherwise I'm kind of disrespecting you as a musician, and I believe it's not the way it should be. You're definitely in tune with character. You portrayed the darkness, the heaviness, intensity very well throughout, and then last moment, yes, it is uncharacteristic of the first two. It's interesting the way you described it, as it would be like a mockery and sarcastic to a certain degree, and it can be, yeah, because it has that element of almost like the circus is in town all of a sudden while we're like in the desert. So very good. And why did you pick this sonata? You picked it or your teacher?
I picked it.
Very good. So, again, it is a characteristic of Prokofiev, as you said, but looking at his other sonatas, I mean, every sonata is practically unique, the way he writes. And the first sonata is kind of, he's still looking for, the style, and then from the second sonata, the rest of them are they're just different. So what I will suggest you today, because you understand the music and you have your concept, which is, I would describe certain things differently, but you're going from, let's say, more of the, almost like Shostakovich angle, because in Shostakovich you can hear more of the, him being suppressed more than in Prokofiev. Prokofiev somehow able to hide this into his fairy tale images. Because if you think, look at Prokofiev's imagery, it's really, it's a fairy tales, darker tales. And aside from his 6th and 7th sonata that considered to be worse sonatas, the other ones, it's a complete fantasy of, and we can only guess what, he thought about it. So, and for me, the first movement falls into this dark tale of, that we actually have in our, folk traditions. It's not fairy tale, with a happy ending. It just kind of darkened all the imagery characters, dark forest and some witches and everything. And Prokofiev's his very first composition was, Opera Giant, when he was like 5 or 6, wrote for in-home performance. So he wasn't in touch with fairy tales, and he portrayed that quite a bit. He has some not political ordered, but reflecting politics, not as directly as Shostakovich in some of his writing, but a lot of his pieces are just fairy tales and characters that come from. So, saying all that, now into basic pianistic work. And I know you're playing with cold hands, you have to really warm up to have a full control, so you get discount. So, doesn't mean you cannot. But the way it sounded, even in the first and the second movement, few things you can still look into. The first movement, if you look at his phrase structure and motivic structure, it's pretty much just about neoclassical, because you have all these short slurs, like we see it in the Viennese classical writing. So that requires motivic shaping, that requires breathing in between, to a certain degree, not like in, let's say, Mozart or Haydn, when you actually have to have a disconnect. You hear it's more of the dynamic nuance versus then completely dry cut in between motivic groups. And then all those short motivic groups eventually form in a longer phrase. Next thing to try to think about is how much flexibility in tempo can you allow yourself to do it? And there will be a bunch of opinions. So it's again, if I give you a few examples, again, feel free to say, well, I don't feel it this way. And you're entitled to. And so I see it in general, aside of the last movement, because you played, it's a technical thing, you have to survive that thing. And you actually, honest, you played at the end with crossing hand. When I played years ago, I actually distributed between hands. So because, it's like, I'm going for the competition, I'm going to miss half of those. So I did some kind of tricks. I would have to remember how I did it. But I would treat, in terms of the tempo, the first movement to the most, second to some degree more conservatively. And we're talking about expressive nuances in tempo. That is, any music can prompt us to react with. So let's just go over a few things. But in general, you played extremely well. And then the sound organization. But that I will give you like 50% discount coupon on cold hands, because it's really hard to control this thing until your hands are fully warm, like anything basically. Now I don't know if it works. So guys, if you don't hear me, let me know. Just start screaming. So I would carefully evaluate my sound organization vertically and horizontally. What I mean by that, vertically we have to position our primary voices and secondary voices away from each other. You can think about this as high and low, or you think as far and close, dimensional this way, or that way. So, and then motivic shaping, especially in the first movement, because it's so motivically chopped up. So which note are you actually shaping to? And make sure that you actually do that externally, not just internally. So, and then to a certain degree, I would be still conservative with few rests that he has. Like, so for example, not, it still sounds good, but we're missing something that composer really wanted to be very, neoclassically precise. Now, that opening for me, it's actually, because I see this more as a dark fairy tale, not as a more political oppression. He's trying to express something there. I don't see it this way, but doesn't mean it's not there. For me, it's almost like you find yourself in the middle of the dark forest, and just there's something went behind that tree. And it starts with just like, and then the story starts from here. That's Tchaikovsky, actually, the chord that. And again, those rests. So I would be very careful with the amount of pedal, because it cuts into that motivic grouping. It starts to link them together. And it's hard to have a clear four-voice sometimes texture that it's the way it's written. It becomes more of like a primary voice, and something comes along with. So drier pedal, and I would treat those rests as mandatory, which you do. This one that is circled, you and that one, you absorb it. But the other rest somehow went, on the pedal. So now, can you try this? Plus again, left hand starts with the syncopation. And then if you think about this, then it's that motivic structure, which is so tedious here. He has, then this is in between, and then, and again. Because when it comes to motivic shaping, it's an interesting thing. I don't think it's drastically changed from the Viennese classical period into the 20th century. And when it comes to the motivic shaping, we're talking about 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, and some some groupings, sometimes he uses longer slurs, but this one he uses a lot of short ones. In some of his sonatas, like Ninth Sonata starts with this long slur going over like quite a few measures. We have to figure out not only that they are grouped together, and not only it's an indication of certain articulation response, but it also tells you, shape me. Now, how to shape, it's probably reverts back to those basic rules we shape based on meter, rhythm, and direction if you have longer units. But when it comes to the motivic shaping, it's usually rhythm and meter and rhythm. So shorter notes usually go to the long notes, usually. So unless composer indicates something else. If the rhythm is uniformed, we have to look for the stronger, the notes in that group that coincide with stronger pulses and figure out which of those will be shaped. There's two notes slur, not necessarily the second will be softer. If the second note falls on a stronger beat, well, the second note gets a little bit more weight. If the first one falls on a stronger beat and the second note is lighter, on the lighter beat, then we play the second note lighter. So I would re-examine this like here. Right, so it goes into the long note. Here you have 2 quarters on the downbeat and then on the second. And then it's, here he wants 2 accents, so then we have to honor that. Now, he didn't write as a long slur. Then that would be all the notes are guiding to the wherever arrival point we choose to. He has the arrival point in terms of the phrasing dynamic. It gets somewhere on the long term. But that motivic inner dynamic that drives the phrasing dynamic, I would approach it a little bit more conservatively. So it's, if you decide, there is always an exception, your artistic decision. If you say, well, I know it should be done this way, but I will do it opposite because this is how I like it. And then you justify your crime. So, I like that diminuendo here, even though it asked me to do that. But that's all right. I wouldn't do. Because then I'm going against what Prokofiev wrote. Right? No, it's da da da, go to the long note, and then stress less. And then that one up to you. If you want to go to the long note or you want to break the rule a little bit and do stress on the first one, da da da. I like that myself. I played like that. Da da da. Right. And then right. Right. This thing is gonna be the end of me. I don't know where to position it so it doesn't fall. Maybe in the back. I will be secret agent. If it falls again, guys, I'll just let it lay on the floor. So it's, I would be careful with the tempo fluctuation. So it's allegro molto, yes, sostenuto. So do you want allegro or sostenuto? So, but rest. pedal in. G flat. See, his texture is fairly clear. Too much pedal, too much blurrish stuff, it just all of a sudden, it blobs clear linear writing into some kind of more sound effect or, building up of some kind of sound things. So it's not even a harmony sometimes. So I would approach it almost like a linear, almost polyphonic. He has this imitative a little bit elements, and then very light pedaling and not too much with the tempo variations. When he wants retardando, he writes it down. It's same with Ravel. You're not supposed to slow down unless he wrote it for you. So even his music is so expressive and it asks for certain breathing here and there, but little breathing is one thing. Altering tempo, rather noticeably, it's not stylistically what Ravel wants. So same with Prokofiev. I would not do. I'm not gonna do what you do. I just wanna. I wouldn't do that. You can make a beautiful sound, but the tempo is a very, very interesting thing. I personally believe the tempo is more an expressive entity. Sound is both, it's a structure and expression at the same time. But the tempo, as soon as we start to flex the tempo, we either get the result we wanted or we might dilute something. So I would be a little bit more conservative. My goodness. So, and try again from the beginning. We're gonna hop around a little bit, and then watch your sound. If you're playing at any time, that has to be secondary. If you're playing this, not. There is always a split between melodic note, primary melodic note, and secondary voices. So if that split is not well defined, then the texture becomes approximate. Poco ritardando, back to tempo. Very good. Little ritardando. Ritardando. You're good, you're good. I'm just trying. And then back to tempo. Very good. 2, 3. Just flex the sound, not tempo. Very good. Very good. And now you pedaling very carefully. Very good. Very good. Very good. think here, if you follow the more precise motivic shaping and then plan your phrasing dynamic, make sure that in the long term you don't just have crescendos, diminuendos exactly the same way. I think this music will start to speak for itself without being imposed too much on it. That was very good. And I'm assuming you probably play like this most of the time in terms of the sound control.
Yeah.
So that's why I gave you 50% discount for the cold hands. So that was well organized right now. I heard where your primary voices, where your secondary harmonic voices, or different linear imitation that comes in, they were in places. First time it was a little bit mashed together. Not all the time, but so that was very good. But the tempo was a little bit too flexible for me right now. This is the way I would approach it. Now, your pedaling was more careful right now, and where you can be a little bit more creative with the pedal is, and I would do the same thing when it says tranquillo, and this is where your tempo can be a little bit more, in a recapitulation, a little bit more flexible, and you can have a little bit of a color pedal, but you just still have to be careful not to blend too much. When you little echo. I hear he's like he's in a wonderland. There's some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of bird making this splashes. So I don't see his. For some reason, I don't see too much political behind this. But again, this might be my problem. Some kind of weird thing.
Okay.
All these inner voices. But in terms of the color pedal, this is a good opportunity. Careful with that G. Now you have two voices. Now, all of a sudden, top voice in the left hand gets adds to the menu. Can you try from here? Which note are you voicing in this chord? Yeah. So, but make sure you hide this. Right. Now, how are you shaping those 5 notes in the left hand? No. Which note are you going to? Yeah. Now, in the situation like this, find one of the notes that matches one of the primary beats. Or, you cannot do, or, good. No. It's an awkward thing. Right. Right. But I wouldn't see if you start flexing the tempo, your rhythmic interest here gets diluted. Just do it right in tempo. If you think about this, the upper voice does, it's closing, yeah? While this voice decided to, first of all, syncopate, and then it just gets in the middle of it. It's just like, what are you doing there? It's another thing that just crawled between your feet somewhere. It's like, what is that? So it's unexpected. I would curve the sound in the primary melody to diminuendo, and that one actually going to just show up for a measure and a half. Try it. Watch your pedal. Your pedal was blending. No, I would bring it to E. Right. No. You don't have to flex your tempo. Good. No, that was too blurry. Light pedal here. Right. Yeah, once you see espressivo, that's where you can be a little bit flexible in. And that's it. And then that thing that showed up there is back. And no, but espressiva as being kind, not lecturing. Right. No. Right. In the right hand. C sharp. It's almost like a little smile there, just it's kind of out of place, seem to be. No, I want to slow down. No, but voice C sharp. It's out of place. Right. And then that's very good. The next thing is be careful when you're playing something like this. It's very easy to overload the sound in general. Prokofiev lies, most of the time, he's not a heavy textured composer. His texture is most of the time is light. So the way in development section, it's very easy to just simply get too loud too soon and get too thick. Even in fortissimo, you have to just look at all the slurs that are written in there. This is one example. Melodic versus harmony addition in the same hand, you have to be careful not to blend them together. That's not melodic.
Okay.
Then not. When you played, you didn't accent that too much, but that was instead of try from here. Too much. Technically, as you're playing this with a full ample sound, the harmonic insert will be probably at around mezzo forte, maybe.
Okay.
Try again. and it's the same thing here when you go. Your primary voice is in the left hand, so you have to balance it. And this is a single forte, so you have a room to balance it out a little bit wider. Try that. Voice. Right, and then even here, yeah, that's right. So that one will be touch of forte, and this is ringing sound, bells like. Same here, careful. It's not. Right, just yeah. You have to. There you have two voices in the right hand. Da, ti, da. This is additional voice. Yeah. Okay. You want to balance that additional voice away a little bit from the melody. Okay. Now, good. And in the left hand, it's not. I mean, yeah, in that case. No, it's A flat. It's A flat. That one I suggest you to play with two hands. Right, very good, very good. And even in that massive fortissimo, we still have to leave the room for harmonic reaction, register shifts, so it doesn't sound too blocked. So you can pull back a little bit. Collectively, it's going to be massive, but within that mass, you have to have a little bit of a dimension. Now, I know we're going to be stopped in a second. Just address the second movement a little bit. Again, in terms of the expression and atmosphere, it's spot on. Here again, it's a linear writing. You have to be a little bit more precise the way he writes this imitative polyphony. So he starts with. And I think this is what you're going for, but what happens, that voice has to present itself. Now I'm starting. They're gonna cross each other, but when you play in this D, F is actually should be already softer. The way it sounded when you played, it sounded like this voice pretty much flipped into that voice at the cross point. So it never sounded like the other voice. light pedal, otherwise it just blends together too much. You have to sing on this voice starts. It's almost like in the fugal writing. When the subject presents itself, it has to have a distinct sound that we hear it on this instrument versus blended in. The pedal is needed there, but I would use again a lighter, drier pedal, something like this, versus a little bit more generous, which I like. You played very well this transition. This part. Again, balancing them out a little bit. But it sounded beautiful. In the last moment, what you can check, I know it's challenging. Every time you play in anything more than 2 notes sounding at the same time, and one of them is a melody, check how your sound is arranged. So. Note. They mark tenuto, not staccato. Now here. It wasn't balanced, and so they sounded a little bit more together, and it, again, the texture-wise is fairly light. The only density comes at the end when he just goes crazy. So I would it's them. Yeah, Macker, yes. All their own notes. And so, otherwise it's just too many notes and it's just too thick. But this is hard. This is hard technically, and as a result, it's hard to control the sound. It just because you have to survive through this circus that goes on mechanically. And so, well, great job.
Thank you very much.
And we have Boris. You did the right thing. You had to go and warm up a little bit because it's hard to stay alive. Yeah, you can have an open heart surgery in this room. It's cold enough.
Would you need a score? Or?
I remember the tune. Which edition are you using?
Henley.
Yeah, let me see, because Henley is sometimes different than Podorevsky.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, good. So Chopin Ballade number 4. Thank you for your performance, and thank you for your opinion about this piece. Now you're gonna verbalize it. Okay. Let me just drop this thing here. In case we need it. So what is, gosh, this thing, it's like explosion. What about you in this piece? What do you see in this piece? What triggers you? What is your concept? Whatever you can say as you and that ballad. How you see it, what's your take on it?
Okay, so ballad, it comes from the literature genre. So I'm trying to tell a story. That's the main idea of this piece. And for me, this story can be found in the relationship between this dramatic, melancholic, or even angry F minor and all the other keys that the ballad tries to escape to, but ultimately kind of falls back into the same repeated theme. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that would be my main kind of overview of the piece. And then there's many little details about it. I think it's very polarized, yes, in its emotional expression. So it goes from totally depression, no, depression, not depression, but desperate. Oceania? Huh? I don't speak Russian though.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't. But from dread, from totally dreadful to epic and really, yeah.
Okay, so your perception of this piece that is, first of all, it's extremely polarized. It's dramatic. It goes anywhere from the sense of, I don't know, loss and loneliness to the extreme where it becomes basically a catastrophe. Something like that, yeah? Good. Well, now, where are you studying, by the way?
So I'm studying in Brussels in the Royal Conservatory, the Flemish part, not the French one. Yeah.
You speak French?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, good. So, very good. So, and it is. This music is polarized, and this music is dramatic, and this music is ultimately ends in catastrophe. So, it's not the third ballad that is optimistic and the only optimistic out of four. Now, let me ask you another question. You mismentioned bass with the melody notes a lot. Is that intentional or?
Okay, so in general, I'm trying to go for a more of a 19th century approach to the piece. So I'm also doing a bit of pianoforte, and I guess I'm kind of biased to search for this style of playing. And the recording that really inspired me was by Koczowski, this Polish pianist who is a student of Karol Mikuli, who is Chopin's assistant for teaching. And his recording is very special because it shows how just absolutely differently people used to interpret this piece. I mean, there is many different ways, but one of the things that's very obvious in this style of playing is, first of all, the hands are detached a lot of the time, and I mean...
And it was a tradition at a certain point when they just barely played anything at the same time.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going with that trend.
I mean, I wouldn't go to the extreme, but
and you didn't, but that was consistent enough just for me to ask you a question.
Yes.
So, because I know what your opinion
is.
Just tell you, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. Very good. Next question. You're extremely flexible with tempos. And like, it's a range, you're staying within the range, but it's constantly changing. Can you tell us something about this? Because again, I don't want to tell you what the hell are you doing, because my opinion is my opinion. I want to know your opinion, especially if you're playing on the period instruments. So, and trying to learn that aspect of it. So, just what's up with that?
So in my case, I guess a lot of the tempo changes might have been a bit spontaneous right now. This is not a piece that I've worked on with the teacher recently. I mean, it's an old piece that I retook, so what I've been kind of shaping as my interpretation has been, I mean, it's not that I didn't work on it with the teacher, but I didn't consistently work day after day on it with the teacher. But in general, again, this type of playing, if you hear older recordings, the tempos they go through, they kind of vary a lot. There is a few bass tempos that they use for specific, for example, for the second theme or for the first theme or for the introduction. And I'm really trying to have a solid pulse in a lot of places, and then in this solid pulse of, let's say, 1 bar or sometimes 2 bars, I'm trying to be a bit more flexible, but I mean, maybe I can be more successful in that regard.
Good. Thank you. So in terms of the tempo, and again, I'm not the one who is telling the truth, nothing but the truth, only the truth, and there's, So, my only reference to the tempo flexibility are not the old pianists. And it's interesting, when you listen all the pianists, surprisingly, some of them were more strict in tempo treatment than we would think. It's always, the problem is with, when we listen to recordings, when we try to copy not the actual performance, but the idea of flexible tempo, are we overdoing it? Because just because such and such performer allowed to slow down in 3 places, do I have to now flex my tempo every other measure? So, and my other point of reference that supposedly Chopin was more or less conservative in terms of the tempo variation. So he himself said the tempo rubato is done in the melody while the rest stays in tempo. And he was conservative, just flexing the tempo. His music is so expressive that it asks for time flexibility every other measure. It just simply asks, because so many beautiful turns, harmonic changes. It just needs for the expression, it naturally reacts with the tempo change. And is that the way to go? Does it structurally break the overall picture? Do we lose the sense of longer phrase? So all those questions pop in right away. The easy solution, try to flex less. And save the tempo. Again, flexing meaning more than just light variation in tempo, the nuance in tempo. That happens all the time. We don't play metronomically, it's just impossible. It will be terrible. But when it starts to shake noticeably, this is where the question begins. First of all, you don't have to please anybody. You have to give your own opinion. But at the same time, in your own opinion, you have to justify it. And maybe make enough recordings and just listen it and mark every time you flex in tempo more than just nuance, just do the jiggly line over it. And see if you have a lot of the jiggles throughout the piece, what happens, that special thing that the tempo presents in expression becomes usual. So, and then from that point, it's not special anymore, so it's a lot. It's like you go into a beautiful valley and you have so many different flowers, and they're all there, so, well, you know, or you live in the garden of roses every day, well, that becomes nothing special. Then you see like some little flower, there's a difference, like, oh, this is interesting. So it might devalue the tool that you're using to express. Expressing through the sound is one thing. expressing to the sound and the tempo is something else. And I can only give you my opinion. And for my taste, you flex in tempo too often. And I understand why. But I'm not hating it, but it's structurally, it's not helping the structure. And Chopin was, again, as beautiful as he is a structural composer. He's fairly solid in his structural approach. And tempo is the tricky thing. It can just break the whole thing into fragments and just have a mosaic of little portions versus continuity with certain declines. That would be the ultimate goal to look for, besides other things. Now, where you can start checking yourself, and then you will decide if it works or not. And we're going to do it right now. I would first of all check your original tempo across all sections and see if you actually keep in that tempo throughout the piece, or by the time you're on page 5, 6, you don't know where you started. So let's do that. So you're going to play just the main theme at your tempo, wherever the tempo you have right now. So no, right from there, and then we're going to poke around, just skip from page to page. Okay, so that's your tempo.
I would say that's. I don't think.
Yeah, I know you don't think in 8 notes, but I will think in 8 notes for now, because that will keep my each swing a little bit more organized, so that I know what's going on within the swing. But you're absolutely right. You cannot think in 6/8 here. You have to have 2 beats per measure, sometimes even 1. Very good. So 1, 2, 3. Now, can you play this for me? But in that tempo.
I played faster.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of recordings. That's how they play. So if you forget the recordings and go with the score, some things might change. Okay? Now let's go to this. And you can flip pages if you want. After that, according to this edition. Okay, now let's go to the second theme. Yeah, so it was. Very good. Let's go to the other part. From here. accelerando. It's not all of a sudden you have to play faster, yeah? It doesn't matter how else playing. We're looking at the score right now. We will forget, nobody ever performed this piece. You took this fresh, and you shook hands with Chopin, and Chopin told you, I'm very conservative with tempo, so, Boris, if you start to move tempo too much, we're not going to be friends anymore. So you can flex a little bit, and then find a special moment to, and nobody ever, he dedicated it to you, so. So it will be first performance, and then he's semi-possessive teacher, Chopin, and just says, well, I want you to actually be a little bit more conservative. Let's just imagine that's the story, yeah? All right, so accelerando is a gradual acceleration, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures. Yes, so it starts here and then goes for 5 measures until it goes to a tempo. And you're slowing down here, which is okay. So let's try again, maybe lead to that, like 3, 4 measures before that, maybe like somewhere here. And that will be, clapping. So. And then next part. Which you played, by the way, very beautifully. When you played, I like that you dimmed the sound and you very refined. That was a beautiful spot. Good. Now. Until the end, as it says, so accelerando to the end. So now you will have to gradually speed up until the last chord. Let's see if we can do that. Starting from. To the end. Yes, to the end. That's editorial maybe, but it goes from edition to edition. So it's usually that's what it says to the end. All right, so I'm not telling you that should we really play. It's like pulling teeth, yeah? You're like saying, this is too slow, yeah? Well, might be not a bad idea to put yourself in a tempo solitary confinement for some time to potentially return to original score, not the build-up over the years and traditions of interpretation of it. Then once you settle there, see if you can challenge yourself to find the means to express in those tempo or closer to, because it's an artificial thing what we did right now. Expression requires tempo fluctuation. But if you go through that, you might rethink your ideas in sections, what they're trying to say, because instead of going through the force and velocity, you might potentially hear a gentle, tender, dialogue the drama comes after. This is not yet. This is just the start of that next section that will lead to the rise of glory with a catastrophe that falls right after. But this is just the start of it. So it starts with a doubt. There is no answer. It's a question, but the answer is, I don't know. That at least resolves. Nowhere we see forte here. No addition wrote forte, agitato, or anything. It's still within the lighter dynamic setting. Your more intense dynamic comes after. You had nice forte here already. This is too slow. I'm just going through the shaping. If you just look at the fabric of this melodic material, right now it doesn't tell you that I'm gonna die. And it doesn't tell you that I'm so agitated I cannot stand it. It doesn't tell me it's angry. It doesn't tell me with the nature, the way it sounds. Left hand, yes, it's lamenting and not touching around it yet. It's not there yet. The wind, yes. Some kind of light force that picks you up and brings you to this hope, which you played very well. That was beautiful. So, and then it's. It's that dream that is somewhere. And it's one forte. And stylistically, this is Chopin. It's not something that is more grounded like Brahms, for example. And this is a theme of hope in one forte. So it's not a theme of I hate you. So I would say there is more light entering the room versus the storm. So it's the first foreshadowing, but it's still we're in a happy land. Maybe here your ears start to go up. So that really implies there's things gonna go south. Maybe not. still, I think this is arrival to something positive, yeah? For the first time from the whole, there was a dream theme, that's a second theme, but it's, the real upset happens. So that's when it's going to be all of a sudden you're in a different thing. But that happens only right before it. Nothing, there is a little bit of foreshadowing in these few little things, but it's not really. And then it's, I still don't know what's going to happen because it's like, it's still a mystery because we went to all of a sudden this dramatic burst of whatever, and I'm just like in the movie, I'm waiting for the next scenery because it just didn't lead to that. But even the way it ends, still I'm not sure. We're in the C major right now, and then all of a sudden you have that sunset for the last time. So, and that's it. Now, talking about this part and the tempo, he wrote tempo change in his first ballad for the coda, yeah? Then he wrote the tempo change in the second ballad, yeah? Let's check. Second ballad. No, he didn't. You don't even need it because that's already fast, yeah? So he definitely, he wrote the first one, but change in tempo. Yes, presto con fuoco. Third ballad just rolls into that ending part, same thing. And no tempo change in the fourth ballad. He doesn't write presto. So we're assuming he probably meant, it's close to originals. So, but even just minus all that, the tempo has to be fast enough that you can speak in it. So, and when you speak, that means you have to not only pronounce the voices that potentially can be leading melodic narrative voices, even in something like this, but also make sure that you're able to curve the sound and shape them, not just simply stick those notes out. If you look at this writing, and again, it's my guess, the second measure is more definite in terms of which voice he wanted. Or first measure, it's almost like pick and choose. Let's imagine you forget about the tempo. You just work with the material right now. And you know that Chopin, most of the time, writes fast melodic, his passage works fast melodies. Not just arpeggio for arpeggio, harmonic filler, occasionally. So you have to find, and this is a good example that he's trying to, within this, not defining the melody, he splits this texture into some notes that potentially melodic, some notes that potentially rhythmic harmonic filler. So it's, that's what my pick. dropping other notes. Okay, so I picked that. Then what I have to do, I have to not just stick those notes out, I have to phrase them, yeah? So if I go, well, that's not going to be present. It's just artistic decision to make a choice. Do you go that route or you go with the force, velocity, and rhythm and energy? Both legitimate, you just pick. So just because I want to hear the melody there doesn't mean you have to. So, and then again, that little accelerando to the end kind of tells me potentially you have to save yourself some speed because you have no room to accelerando the way you play right now. And so all I'm saying is that might be a good second look at the whole piece, and you might find not dreading those tempos, but saying, well, this is actually changing my concept of the piece. I wouldn't play as slow as the original tempo myself, this part. But I wouldn't do. My hands are frozen, but that's just too much. Because again, here I'm listening. There is no drama here yet. A little bit of. And then here he splits in two voices. Then they unite together. That's why I like those tight, because they're syncopated notes, and it helps my phrasing to do what I wanted to do. Again, here nothing tells me to crescendo. Nice kind of, almost like folk-like. And then again, I'm not killing anybody here yet, so it's. I'm happy. No, I'm not. I know you play C natural. Only one forte. And so on. And I'm flexing tempo too much right now because I'm just trying to make a point. And I'm saying I'm not letting you play, but I think you're already playing it very well enough mechanically that I think you just need, my suggestion would be just to take tempo as the starting point and then see if it's going to lead you to different expressive choices. So same thing here, if you think about this, you are playing forte and almost fortissimo fairly intensely here, but again, if you look at that linear potential that any polyphonic texture, rich polyphonic texture with the secondary lines gives you a lot of options to choose. So starting from the left hand, have that melody wannabe hiding there. Then you have this. I don't worry about this fortissimo that comes after, and that single forte that was there. I don't look at single forte as loud. It's just elevated dynamic. And so you have that, and then you have the, that we heard 500 times already. So my choices would be, I want to go for something new and fresh, without completely discarding the melody, but it just steps in the back, and less potentially. Oh, it's a different note here. I wouldn't do it. I'm not sure if I would go to toccata-like. That's why, and I don't know how authentic that is. In Paderewski edition, they have the diminuendo in the left hand, crescendo in the right hand. They have. And then they do the same thing. That tells me, that melody just tells me, it asks me, help me. It's not angry, it's not killing anybody, and then it kind of vanishes somewhere else. So that's why this ballad is difficult. 500 performances, 500 opinions about it. So that's why sometimes discarding them and try to go to the source, forgetting everything, might open up your interpretation versus somebody else. I do want you to still play a little bit. Can you try to play, we played a little before, but can you try to play the main theme and try not to express through the tempo variation as often, as much as you did? You're allowed to flex your tempo at the end of a long sentence.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Okay.
Your next flexing will be allowed here.
Okay.
Noticeable.
Yeah.
Slight nuance is okay. can start flexing more. Now, this is something that goes against your nature for this piece? Like you're fighting this. It's like, I am like in a desert land, not...
No, definitely not. The only thing that I'm kind of fighting right now is you keep me in the 8 notes, which is kind of
Right.
against what I'm used to.
Right.
Because I sometimes actually practice this with metronome, and I try to maybe go overboard with it, but I try to be together every beat. I put like 1 beat per bar, and then.
So somehow you think you by delaying at the end of the measure, you're still gonna match. So you go off of metronome and then it aligns again.
Something like that.
Okay, so that's not a bad way to work with the metronome because expression requires fluctuation of the time. So, right. So now, if you start flexing this a little bit more, I think this is what you and I would have a sign agreement. Say, I would agree with that because see now when you flex in your tempo like you did at the end of the phrases, more you define it structurally also where your phrase structure is, because otherwise I don't know where it is, because it's every 2-3 measures the tempo flexes. I know, of course, I know the piece and I know harmonically and musically where things are, but in terms of the treatment of the flow and at time, it's not there. Like in following sections, it's I can even slow down that much. And you wouldn't say, well, that's too much. Because I only save it for certain moments. It might be harmonic, beautiful spot, not necessarily just a phrase structure. Same thing here. You were actually a little bit more conservative here. And you're right, it should be 2 beats per measure. Shouldn't be. You can say a lot with the sound itself, nuancing and everything, and then some tempo flexibility. So I'm not trying to convert you. So yeah, I'm finishing. Yeah, so and it's an extremely subjective thing because it's. I mean, I will tell you, everybody, probably 10 out of 10 who you're gonna play for will say that's a lot of tempo variation. It doesn't mean you cannot fight your rights for being flexible more than everybody else. As will be your interpretation. There are some extreme pianists like Ole Mustanin, for example. He reinterprets everything. If you never heard his recordings, Ole Mustanin, listen his recordings. I didn't see him recently in the recordings produced, but about 20 years ago, he recorded quite a bit. And it's just like you listening completely different. He played some Chopin, which everyone will just run and kill him for what he's doing. But the guy just went and he recorded, I think, EMI label, like in Famous. And some of that was actually very interesting, and like very fresh. And so it doesn't mean you cannot do that. But then you have to play, in terms of technique, pristinely. Your texture has to be organized to the point, and then you just say, well, this is what I do. But before you say I do, I would go back and forget about all the performances and at first check the tempo, because there are other things I could have talked for another few hours in terms of how you weigh your priorities in terms of the phrasing dynamic. You sometimes put a lot of sound weight at the end of the phrase. All of a sudden you start to grow in dynamic when it seemed to be declining. And so, but again, it would have to be a conversation. I don't like to just say, don't do this, because if you have a justification for this, I have to know it and at least know why you're doing it before I suggest what could have been there. And so, but the tempo fluctuation is something that I would start, because it will potentially change your perception of what you're trying to express. And maybe potentially it brings you to the original source of what was left from Chopin. And little evidence that he didn't like too much of a tempo, fussing around with tempo. He was supposedly a little bit more conservative about it, but not stiff. Yeah. So, and then maybe that will yield something. Otherwise, if not, then we had a good conversation about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone who survived to the end.